What up, gamers? Yeah, it's part 2 of the E3 2021 experience. If you haven't seen part 1, I'm going to leave a link down in the description below, as well as the title card up in the top right corner of the screen, where I basically go over the first 2 days of E3 2021, and some of the titles that I found interesting, or titles that I might plan on picking up when they release in the next year or two. In this final part, in this case being part 2, we're going to be going over the very few games that I found interesting in the second half of E3, this being day 3 and 4 on the 14th and 15th of June. Again, this list is only pertaining to anything that I found interesting, or interesting to my, let's just call it, likes or favorites, and other games that I might plan on picking up when they release within the next year. So, without further ado, let's wrap up E3, figure out what games I enjoy, and declare a winner, in my opinion, of who won E3. Let's get to it. Looking at the trailer of Wizard with a Gun, when it was announced, admittedly, it does look pretty impressive. The art style of Wizard with a Gun, at least from the trailer that I saw, it's interesting. The way the art flows definitely works, the guns and the overall atmosphere do play a big part, but I don't think I'm the kind of person that enjoys wizards being in possession of guns, because otherwise you're basically saying that Harry Potter has an AK-47, he's going to shoot Ron Weasley at any given second. But, I mean, it's interesting. It's also like a tabletop, like top-down survival game, kind of like, I was thinking of another game. But, I like the idea. It's simple, it works, it's kind of like Diablo, I guess the best way, that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like top-down, 2D kind of game. So, who knows? Maybe I'll give it a try when it comes out a bit later, but also maybe I won't, because it doesn't impress me much, but we'll see. Let's move to day 4, however, because this list is mostly comprised of Nintendo games that were announced at Nintendo Direct on Tuesday. Day 3 for me wasn't really that big, it was just Wizard with the Gun, so that's why we're going to pass that by. So, let's move into day 4. When it came to Nintendo Direct, to be honest, I completely expected that Smash was going to make an appearance at some point during the Direct. I had already knew that there was more DLC fighters for the Fighter Pass that was coming on the way, so I figured that it made sense that Smash would be here at least to unveil its new fighter. However, I was surprised by making it so that they kicked off Nintendo Direct with the announcement of Kazuya. Yeah, I had to forget the name. With the announcement of Kazuya from the Tekken series as the next fighter available in the Fighter Pass. I wasn't expecting them to kick off Nintendo Direct like that, but I was expecting something more like Metroid Dread or Breath of the Wild 2 as something to kick it off with, but hey, it's Smash, I'm not going to complain. Regardless, I've never actually played the Tekken franchise, so it took me a moment to actually realize that Kazuya was from the Tekken series, because I originally thought he was from Street Fighter. I'm like, no, this doesn't look like a Street Fighter character, so I ruled that out pretty quickly. I also don't really play Smash that much, even though there's a copy of the game somewhere sitting near my Switch somewhere, maybe. So, while I don't play it, I will say that all of Kazuya's moves and abilities do look pretty impressive. The fact that he can turn into a demon is pretty nice. So, who knows? It's cool, but I'm not saying I'm going to play it. It is a cool concept. Maybe I'll go look at Smash and play him a little bit later, but it's not something that I'm going to be focusing on at this moment. Most people, to be completely honest, and from many of the streams and podcasts that I was seeing, most people were not expecting Metroid to appear in any kind of form during Nintendo Direct this year. I mean, honestly, a lot of people were thinking that maybe we'd get a trailer of Metroid Prime 4, or maybe like a development tease. But no. Instead, we got this thing that said Metroid 5 first, instead of an actual title, and I was like, well, what happened to Metroid 4? Like, what happened, guys? Like, geez. This is Metroid Dread, the newest and brightest 2D Metroid game for the first time in over 2 decades. To be honest, from what I was seeing from the trailer, it definitely is a pretty good way to bring Metroid into the 2D era, as it always has been, but bringing it also into the modern era, making the game look pretty impressive for the Switch's hardware, as well as just staying as a 2D game. I have been meaning to actually get into the Metroid franchise for a number of years, but I just haven't really found a good version of the game that I enjoy, or something that I'm actually relatively playing. yes, I do have obviously the 3DS, and I could be playing it on a 3DS, but I honestly don't play my 3DS enough as much now to actually worry about picking up a copy of the game, as I'll play a Switch more. So at some point, when this does release later down the line, I'll probably pick it up to play in my free time and just get the introduction to the franchise. I wouldn't say that I've never enjoyed Metroid, because again, I haven't played the franchise, but I've always wanted to delve into the franchise to see what the hype was all about, since I would say I like Metroid's character, but I figured I need to know more to understand it. The same thing can also be said for this next pick. Something that would be an introduction to a new franchise, and something that, similar to Slime Rancher from the previous episode of the E3 2021 experience, this next pick very much came surprisingly out of nowhere. Much like Metroid, as mentioned before, I've never actually played any of the games in the Warioware series. But, similarly to Metroid again, I've always wanted to play a Warioware game of some kind, as for some reason growing up I always looked at Warioware as kind of like a second alternative to Mario Party. I'm not entirely sure why I made that decision because they're very different, but I guess that's just how I see it. The new installment for Warioware actually looks really good. Graphics are super happy and all that stuff, you know, Wario over here is doing his thing with his own company. It kind of surprised me that Wario is actually speaking actual lines. It made me both surprised, but it also made me laugh a little bit, because I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. The addition of co-op multiplayer for this new Warioware game is also pretty nice, and it adds in some more creativity with other minigames that you'll find. This is going to probably release just not too long after Sonic Colors Ultimate in early September, so as of right now I'm kind of in a toss-up as to either get Warioware or Sonic Colors, but I do plan to pick up Warioware at some point, but it might take a while, and when I do, most likely, similar to Metroid, I'll probably play it in my free time just to get used to the franchise, because obviously, if we've been waiting for 19 years, well not 19 years, but that was Metroid, we've been waiting a long time for a WarioWare game, so I don't know if we're going to have to wait another decade to get another one, so I may as well just wait and see what happens. Out of all the things that were announced at Nintendo Direct, this is probably the one that I will most likely not pick up. And the one that I figured I'd put on the list, because A, I guess it's interesting, but it's more so I can rant. At first glance, when you look at the announcement of Mario Party Superstars, you would think that it's almost like an expansion, or maybe a DLC or a free update to that of Super Mario Party. But no, it's not that at all. Instead, it's just Nintendo basically not wanting to make a Super Mario Party 2, and rather than fixing their mistakes from the first game, they just made this. Now, hear me out, and I get it. If you've never played the first Mario Party on the N64, which is where a lot of the levels for Mario Party Superstars come from, then you might want to pick it up to see where Mario kind of kickstarted in terms of its Mario Party adventures. But there are people out there, like myself, who have an original copy of Mario Party 64, as well as an N64 to play it on. And to be honest, it just feels like Nintendo doesn't want to make another installment to expand Super Mario Party, potentially because they're holding out for their next console to make another one on launch, or they're working on it right now, but they just didn't want to share anything. I'd rather actually just play Mario Party on the N64. It just feels like they brought N64 Mario Party over with a facelift, of course being Super Mario Party's looks, as well as its gameplay, because in general that's kind of what it is. It's basically just Super Mario Party with the looks and gameplay, and that's just smashed into Mario Party 1. I probably won't pick this up because I'd rather pick up Super Mario Party instead, because in the end I feel that Super Mario Party would be better, but that's just me. Surprisingly, Nintendo decided to end their Nintendo Direct on a pretty big one, and that was Breath of the Wild 2. I managed to experience the first Breath of the Wild for the first time a few years, about in the last year or two, on my Wii U. Shocking, I know, I'm still playing a Wii U. Admittedly, I didn't have a Switch when I started playing Breath of the Wild, so I at least had my hard-installed copy on my Wii U, and I actually ended up playing it after putting it off for several years, since my siblings would always play the Wii U, so I never really had a lot of time to log into it and actually play, so I just never did. But when I did, I discovered that Breath of the Wild gave me one of the best experiences I've had in a long time when it comes to video games. The vast open world that Breath of the Wild offers is pretty impressive. whether that be from the peaks of Death Mountain or the Hebra Mountains, the harsh sands of the Gerudo Desert, or the plains of just Hyrule and Woodland. These are things that I remember quite often. The music is something that I listen to quite often, and after playing it for the first time, I actually beat the game for the first time. And to this day, Breath of the Wild is the one Zelda game I've actually completed 100%, well, not quite 100%, but at least, you know, getting all the Divine Beasts, killing Ganon, you get the gist. And honestly, the teaser that was dropped today for Breath of the Wild 2, at least it was a gameplay trailer, as well as what we're assuming it on, is definitely making me want to pick up this game when it releases later next year. Visually, this game does look really stunning. It surprises me for the Switch's hardware, considering, yeah, I mean, Nintendo can pull pretty stunning visuals like games like Super Mario Odyssey, as well as Zelda on their consoles, but this just looks better. It looks better, and it looks like something that would be on a Series X because of those God Rays. I mean, come on. Honestly, if this game didn't look as good as it was, then it looked like something like Ocarina of Time, and let's be honest, I don't think we want a modern Zelda game that looks like Ocarina of Time on the N64 on a Switch, let's be real. Seeing the return of stasis with time stopping and new abilities, like warping through concrete, as well as new combat moves and gliding through the skies, is a journey that I'm pretty excited to get into. I'm definitely looking forward to when Breath of the Wild 2 releases next year, but I'm just definitely hoping that it doesn't come out towards the end of next year. Primarily because I honestly don't really want to wait that long to play it, and more importantly, there might be other games that might get announced as we move into next year in E3 2022, so I want to make sure that it's open, that I can at least get the game and play it, so that I don't have to worry about other games that are coming out at that time. But that is basically all of the games for days 3 and 4 of E3 2021. There wasn't a lot for day 3, it was just Wizard with the Gun, because honestly, day 3 wasn't a day that I particularly watched anything. It was mostly things that weren't gaming related, as well as the indie showcase, but primarily I wasn't really an indie person, so I didn't really bother watching. Nintendo, I've always been a Nintendo person, and Bandai Namco didn't really have anything that intrigued me, so that's why Bandai Namco games are not on this list, because none of them really interested me that much. So, who do I think won E3? I think it's kind of a recurring trend that, you know, after E3 ends, we all decide, okay, which company won, which day was the best, and which developers are pumping out the newest games, which one did better. And honestly, for me, it's kind of a toss-up between Xbox and Bethesda's briefing, as well as Nintendo Direct. Both showcases have had some pretty good games, I'm not gonna lie. Whether that be things I've mentioned in videos like Forza Horizon 5 or Slime Rancher or Back 4 Blood, to things like not Left 4 Dead, but to things like Nintendo with Breath of the Wild, Mario Party Superstars, and other games that I haven't mentioned like Mario Superstar Golf, as well as others. In general, I think it's kind of a 50-50 split. I don't want to declare a big winner because there's pretty much evenly almost amount of games that I find interesting from both sides. So I'm just going to say it's 50-50, you guys can just duke it out in the comments. But that's going to conclude this little, I guess we'll call it spotlight, on my thoughts and opinions of E3 2021. I would say it's a pretty good event. Some surprises like Slime Rancher and Warioware from other places, and some pretty good games that I'm looking forward to, like Forza Horizon 5, Back 4 Blood, and Breath of the Wild 2 are just a few examples of games I plan on looking forward to when they release in the coming months or next year or two. If you want to see other videos like this on other events, then make sure you like this video and comment below what kind of events you might want to see me do. But for now, I'm going to go see if I can film a Minecraft video, because, I mean, that's the next thing I gotta do. But that's all for now. My name is PandaPowerSauce, remember to stay saucy, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Later!